how to use this audiobook. Before we begin, understand what you hold in your hands. This is not a philosophy book. This is not about what should be. This is a field manual for what is. The laws you're about to hear describe how power actually operates in boardrooms, in governments, in relationships, in every arena where humans compete. Some listeners will be disturbed. Good. Discomfort means you're encountering truths you've been avoiding. Others will recognize these patterns from their own experience and feel validation. Some will use these laws ethically, as defensive knowledge. Others will use them ruthlessly, as offensive weapons. I make no moral judgments. I simply describe the game as it's actually played. Each law includes concrete examples from history, business, and everyday life. Pay attention to these. They show the principles in action. Every 5 or 6 laws, I'll pause to help you integrate what you've learned. Now, let's begin. Law 1. Never outshine the master. Make them feel eternally superior. Listen carefully. This is the first law for a reason. It is the gateway to power, the foundation upon which all manipulation rests. Break this law, and you will be destroyed before you ever taste victory. The fatal mistake of the brilliant. You are talented. You're capable, perhaps even exceptional. And that, my friend, is your greatest danger. History is littered with the corpses of brilliant people who made one catastrophic error. They shone too brightly in the presence of someone more powerful. Example 1. Nicolas Fouquet and Louis XIV. In 1661, Nicolas Fouquet, France's finance minister, threw a magnificent party at his Chateau Vaux-le-Vicomte. The celebration was so lavish and so spectacular that it outshone anything King Louis XIV had ever produced. The king attended and saw gardens more beautiful than Versailles, entertainment more elaborate than his own court could provide, and wealth displayed more ostentatiously than his royal coffers could match. 3 weeks later, Fouquet was arrested. His property was seized. He spent the rest of his life in prison. His crime was making the Sun King feel dim by comparison. Example 2. The modern corporate version. Sarah was the brilliant analyst at a consulting firm. In a client meeting, she solved in minutes what her managing director had struggled with for weeks. She laid out the solution clearly, impressing everyone in the room. The managing director smiled and thanked her. 2 months later, she was let go during restructuring. The official reason was budget cuts. The real reason was that her managing director ensured she was on the layoff list because she made him look incompetent in front of people who determined his bonus. Why masters destroy the talented. Power is not logical. It is emotional and primal. Your master sits atop their empire, and deep within their psyche lurks a terror they will never admit. The fear of being replaced, forgotten, or made obsolete. When you outshine them, even accidentally, you trigger this ancient fear. Your brilliance wounds their ego. Your success makes them feel inadequate, and they will punish you for it, often without even understanding why. The art of strategic dimming. You become a master of calculated mediocrity in their presence. You make deliberate mistakes that allow them to correct you. You ask for their wisdom on matters you already understand. You credit them for your ideas, making them believe they thought of it first. Example 3. Galileo versus Kepler. Both men were revolutionary astronomers. Galileo publicly challenged the church and insisted on being recognized for his genius. He was placed under house arrest, and his work was banned. Kepler, equally brilliant, framed his discoveries as merely extending and confirming the wisdom of those who came before him. He showed deference to established authorities while quietly revolutionizing astronomy. He died honored and free. Same talent, different approach, completely different outcomes. Make them feel like the sun. Let them lecture you on things you know better. Not absorb. Thank them for their profound wisdom. Watch as they glow with satisfaction, never suspecting that you are the one truly in control. This law requires patience. While others rush to claim credit, You fade into the background, accumulating quiet power. And one day, when the time is right, when you have built your own network and influence, you will step out from their shadow. But not yet. Not today. Law 2. Crush their hope, not just their body. Pay attention. This law separates amateurs from masters. Anyone can strike a body, but true dominance, true control, requires destroying hope itself. Why physical victory is never enough. You defeat your enemy in battle. You humiliate them publicly. You take everything they have. And yet, a month later, they rise again. Why? Because you left their hope intact. Example 1. Napoleon versus the coalition. Napoleon defeated Austria, Prussia, and Russia multiple times on the battlefield. Each time, he took territory and extracted tribute. But he left their governments intact, their national identities alive, and their hope for reversal burning. They kept returning, forming new coalitions, fighting again. Finally, they defeated him, not because they became better soldiers, but because their hope never died. The physical defeats meant nothing, while psychological resistance remained. Example 2. The tech startup war. A dominant company kept crushing a smaller competitor in the market, taking their clients, outbidding them, and releasing superior products. But the competitor's CEO remained defiant, rallying employees with visions of eventual victory. The dominant company finally won not by releasing another better product, but by hiring away the competitor's 3 key engineers and their head of sales in the same week. The competitor's employees saw the talent exodus and concluded resistance was futile. The company folded within 2 months, not from losing battles, but from losing hope. The 3 pillars of hope you must destroy. First, their belief in alternative outcomes. They must see no path forward, no scenario where they win. Second, their faith in their own capabilities. Make them doubt themselves at the deepest level. Third, their trust in support systems. Isolate them. Make them believe no one is coming to save them. Destroy these 3 pillars, and hope dies. Make them thank you for their chains. When you have truly crushed their hope, something remarkable happens. They stop seeing you as their oppressor. They begin to see you as the only source of mercy in a hostile universe. Example 3. The hostage psychology. Stockholm Syndrome is real. When captors control every aspect of a hostage's existence, any small kindness, an extra meal, a loosened restraint, a moment of conversation, becomes overwhelming generosity. Hostages have been known to defend their captors, to thank them, to feel genuine gratitude. You didn't cause their suffering. You simply controlled its intensity. This is power in its purest form. The defeated thanking their destroyer for the terms of their defeat. When to deploy total hope destruction. Use this law strategically. For those who will never accept subordination, for those whose nature demands constant rebellion, for those who pose existential threats. For them, mercy is suicide. Law 3. Keep others in suspended terror. Cultivate an air of unpredictability. Predictability is death. This is the law of controlled chaos. Master it, and you become untouchable. The power of never being understood. Human beings crave patterns. When they cannot predict whether you will reward or punish, embrace or reject, they enter a state of perpetual anxiety. Example 1. Henry VIII. King Henry VIII was a master of unpredictability. His advisors never knew whether they would be elevated to high office or executed. Thomas More was Lord Chancellor one year, beheaded the next. Thomas Cromwell engineered the king's divorce and religious reformation, then was executed when the king's mood shifted. This unpredictability paralyzed the court. No one dared oppose Henry because no one could predict what would trigger his wrath. His inconsistency became his control. Example 2. The unpredictable CEO. A tech CEO would randomly show up, to low-level team meetings unannounced. Sometimes she would praise the work effusively. Other times, she would criticize minor details harshly. Sometimes she would say nothing at all, just observe. Employees never knew which version would appear. This kept everyone performing at maximum effort. They could not relax because they could not predict when scrutiny would come or what standard would be applied. Alternate between warmth and coldness. Praise them in the morning, criticize them by afternoon. Show mercy to one offender, crush another for the same offense. They will search desperately for the pattern and find nothing. The occasional display of extremes. Unpredictability requires demonstration. Periodically, do something so unexpected and so extreme that it shatters their ability to categorize you. Example 3. Steve Jobs firings. Steve Jobs was famous for firing people in elevators, during casual hallway conversations, or after presentations. Sometimes for major failures, sometimes for minor interface decisions he disagreed with. The randomness and disproportion created legendary fear. But he also randomly rewarded people with unexpected stock grants or public praise. The combination made everyone hyper-vigilant, exhausting their mental energy trying to read him. These moments become legend. Remember what happened to David. One shocking display creates months of compliance through memory alone. Law 4. Use their greed as your leash. Greed is universal. This wanting is not a weakness to condemn. It is a handle to grasp. The greedy are the easiest to control because they control themselves, chasing the bait you dangle. Why greed makes perfect slaves. A greedy person never asks, "Should I want this?" They ask only, "How do I get this?" Your power comes not from denying them what they want, but from positioning yourself as the only path to obtaining it. Example 1. The Ponzi scheme psychology. Bernie Madoff did not need to force people to give him money. He made his fund exclusive. He turned people away. He created the illusion of limited access to extraordinary returns. Greedy investors fought to get in. They recruited their friends. They begged for access. They ignored red flags because they wanted the returns so badly. Their greed blinded them to manipulation until it was far too late. Example 2. The promotion carrot. James was promised a promotion to vice president. It was almost as he just needed one more successful project, then another project. Then he needed to train his replacement first. Then the timing was not quite right, but definitely next quarter. This went on for 3 years. James worked twice as hard as his peers, sacrificed weekends, and missed his daughter's recitals. The promotion never came, but he could not walk away. He had invested too much, and it was always almost there. The art of perpetual almost. Give them enough to taste success, never enough to achieve satisfaction. Keep them in a state of perpetual anticipation. Each partial reward hooks them deeper. Make them compete for your scraps. Let multiple people pursue the same limited reward. They will not unite against you. They will tear each other apart, trying to prove they deserve it most. Example 3. The reality TV formula. Every reality competition show uses this principle. 10 contestants compete for one prize. They could theoretically unite against the producers, refuse to participate in humiliating challenges, demand better treatment. Instead, they sabotage each other, form alliances and betray them, and debase themselves on camera, all competing for the prize the producers control. The contestants do all the work of destroying each other, while the producers simply watch and collect ratings. Your own greed, the hidden trap. The greatest danger is your own wanting. If you become greedy for their resources, you reveal your own leash. Let them be the hungry ones. You remain the eternal provider who is never desperate, never needy, never controlled by wanting. Law 5. Win through actions, never through argument. Arguments are for the weak. Words are cheap. Results are irrefutable. Why arguments always fail? You marshal your logic. You present evidence. You dismantle their position. And yet, They remain unconvinced. Why? Because humans are not rational. We are rationalizing. Example 1. Elon Musk and reusable rockets. When Elon Musk said SpaceX would land and reuse rocket boosters, aerospace experts argued it was impossible, impractical, and economically unfeasible. They had decades of experience and theoretical knowledge. Musk did not debate them. He built the rockets and landed them on camera repeatedly. The arguments evaporated against measurable outcomes. Now the entire industry is copying him. Example 2. The ignored proposal. Maria spent weeks crafting the perfect proposal for a new workflow system. She presented it to management with detailed arguments, cost-benefit analyses, and theoretical advantages. It was shelved. Too risky, they said. Unproven. Her colleague David simply built a prototype, tested it with his team for a month, and showed the results. 30% time savings, documented. Management approved full rollout within a week. No arguments required. The power of fait accompli. Do first, explain later, or never. By the time others realize what you have done, it is already complete. The new order exists. Undoing it requires far more effort than preventing it would have. Example 3. Mark Zuckerberg's acquisitions. When Facebook bought Instagram for $1 billion in 2012, critics argued it was insane overpayment for a company with no revenue. Zuckerberg did not defend the price. He just completed the acquisition. Today, Instagram is worth over $100 billion. The arguments look foolish in retrospect. Results ended the discussion. When you must speak, demonstrate instead. Show rather than tell. Let them see a function. Let them experience the result. People trust their own eyes more than your words. Arguments reveal your thinking. Every time you argue, you expose your reasoning, your priorities, and your weaknesses. Silence and action reveal nothing. Law 6. Make your enemy apply their own knife. The most exquisite victory is not defeating your enemy. It is making them defeat themselves. The principle of self-destruction. Every person contains the seeds of their own downfall. Your task is not to attack them directly. Instead, create conditions where their natural responses work against them. Example 1. Julius Caesar and Pompey. When civil war broke out between Caesar and Pompey, Caesar did not try to match Pompey's superior forces directly. Instead, he maneuvered so that Pompey's greatest strength, his massive, well-supplied army, became his weakness. Caesar led Pompey on a chase through Greece, stretching Pompey's supply lines. Pompey's senators and aristocratic allies, accustomed to luxury, pressured him to fight quickly rather than continue the campaign. Pompey's own political supporters forced him into a premature battle at Pharsalus, where Caesar's smaller, more mobile force destroyed him. Pompey's strength, his powerful coalition, applied the knife to his own throat. Example 2. The overconfident negotiator. A company was negotiating to acquire a startup. The startup CEO was known for aggressive, dominant negotiating tactics. He always pushed for more, never accepted first offers, always played hardball. The acquiring company made an intentionally low initial offer. As expected, the CEO countered aggressively, then more aggressively, burning bridges with his hostile tone. He kept pushing harder, assuming this showed strength. The acquiring company walked away, citing his impossible demands and unprofessional conduct. The startup, desperate for the acquisition, lost other potential buyers who had heard about the CEO's behavior. 6 months later, the company acquired the startup for half the original offer. The CEO's aggressive pattern, his signature strength, destroyed his own deal. How to identify the fatal pattern? Study your enemy. What do they always do? What is their predictable response to pressure? The honest man's need to tell truth. The proud man's refusal to retreat. The aggressive man's impulse to attack. Example 3. Martha Stewart's downfall. Martha Stewart built an empire on perfectionism and control. When questioned about a stock trade, that same perfectionism and need for control made her unable to simply stay quiet or delegate to lawyers. She gave detailed statements, made explanations, tried to control the narrative. Each attempt to manage the situation created more evidence. Her strength, meticulous attention to detail, and personal control became the pattern that trapped her. She served prison time not for the original trade, but for the cover-up attempts driven by her need to control outcomes. The trap that looks like opportunity. Present your enemy with an apparent weakness, an opening they cannot resist exploiting. Let them attack, commit resources, and feel the thrill of impending victory. Then reveal it was a trap. Your own knife. Be water, not stone. Never become so predictable that your strengths can be exploited. Never commit so fully to any course that you cannot adapt. Law 7. Destroy the reputation. Keep the man alive to suffer. Death is mercy. Death is escape. But a ruined reputation? That is a living hell that compounds with every sunrise. Why reputation is everything. Strip away the philosophical abstractions, and humans exist through the perceptions of others. Your reputation is your power. Destroy it, and everything collapses while the structure appears to remain standing. Example 1. Lance Armstrong. Lance Armstrong survived cancer and won 7 Tour de France titles. He was a global inspiration, worth hundreds of millions in endorsements and speaking fees. His reputation was destroyed not by defeat in racing, but by revelations of systematic doping. He kept his health, his wealth, and his family, but lost the one thing that gave meaning to all of it: his reputation as a legitimate champion. He lives on, financially secure and physically healthy, but every day he wakes to the reality that his greatest achievements are now seen as frauds. The suffering is renewable, compounding without end. Example 2. The Me Too reckonings. Numerous powerful men in entertainment, media, and business faced not criminal charges, but reputation destruction. Harvey Weinstein, Roger Ailes, Matt Lauer. Many kept their freedom and wealth initially, but lost the social standing that made that wealth meaningful. They cannot enter the spaces they once dominated. They cannot work in their industries. They are social pariahs, living but professionally and socially dead. The architecture of social death. You must systematically dismantle how others perceive your enemy, not through obvious lies, because those can be challenged, through careful suggestions, strategic truths, allowing others to draw their own damning conclusions. Example 3. The Whisper Campaign. An executive was being pushed out, but firing them would trigger a large severance package. Instead, over 6 months, carefully selected truths were shared with key people. Did you notice the discrepancies in their expense reports? I'm concerned about their judgment. Have you seen the emails they send at 3 a.m.? Several people have mentioned feeling uncomfortable around them. Nothing provably false, just concerns, patterns for others to notice. Within 6 months, the executive voluntarily resigned, forfeiting the severance because the social environment had become unbearable. Make them watch their world crumble. Keep them alive. Keep them conscious. Let them see every friendship dissolve, every opportunity vanish, every door that once opened now locked. This suffering is renewable. It does not end at death, the living monument to your power. When you are done, your enemy still breathes but is powerless. They become your involuntary ambassador of fear, a living demonstration of what happens to those who oppose you. Law 8. Infect their mind before you strike their body. Physical battles are fought in moments. Mental battles are won long before the first blow lands. Victory begins in the imagination. Why the mind is the true battlefield. Fear lives in the mind. Doubt grows there. Before you ever raise a hand, you can make them defeated, exhausted, and paralyzed by their own thoughts. Example 1. Mike Tyson's pre-fight intimidation. Mike Tyson often won fights before entering the ring. His reputation, his stare during the referee's instructions, his explosive entries, all psychological warfare. Opponents would enter the ring already half defeated by their own fear. Tyson said, "Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth." But many opponents' plans dissolved before that first punch, their minds infected with doubt about whether they could survive what was coming. Example 2. The competitor's ghost. A small business faced competition from a much larger company moving into their market. Instead of waiting for direct competition, they created uncertainty in their competitor's mind. They leaked that they had a revolutionary technology in development. They posted job listings for positions that suggested major expansion. They had their CEO give interviews hinting at a game-changing announcement. The large competitor panicked, delayed their entry while trying to gather intelligence, and eventually entered the market timidly and half-heartedly. By the time they realized it was mostly smoke, the small business had locked up key accounts. Create phantom threats. The imagination is always more frightening than reality. Make your enemy imagine threats that may not exist. They will exhaust themselves preparing for attacks that never come. Example 3. Cold War paranoia. The Reagan administration's Strategic Defense Initiative, sometimes called Star Wars, may or may not have been technically feasible, but the Soviet Union spent enormous resources trying to counter it, diverting funding from other areas and accelerating their economic collapse. The infection of their strategic thinking, the belief that America had or was developing this capability, caused more damage than the actual technology ever could have. Undermine their certainty. Confidence rests on the belief that one understands the situation. Introduce anomalies. Create situations that contradict their assumptions. Once certainty crumbles, decisive action becomes impossible. They second-guess. They hesitate. They seek more information that never provides complete clarity. And while they are paralyzed, you act with complete clarity of purpose. Law 9. Always say less than necessary. Silence is violence. Words are the currency of the weak. True power needs no explanation. Silence is not absence. Silence is presence. And when wielded correctly, it is the most violent form of communication. Why speech diminishes power. Every word you speak is a gift to your listeners. The more you talk, the more you reveal. Your fears leak through justifications. Your strategies become apparent through explanations. Example 1. Calvin Coolidge. President Calvin Coolidge was famous for saying almost nothing. At a dinner party, a woman told him she had bet she could get him to say more than 2 words. He replied, "You lose." His legendary silence made every word he did speak carry enormous weight. When Silent Cal spoke, the nation listened. His rare pronouncements shaped policy more effectively than the verbose speeches of more talkative presidents. Example 2. The interview technique. Detective interrogators know to stay silent after asking a question. The suspect will talk to fill the uncomfortable silence, often revealing far more than necessary. A journalist used this technique when interviewing a CEO about financial irregularities. She asked one question, then simply waited, maintaining eye contact. The silence became unbearable. The CEO talked for 15 minutes, revealing details that incriminated him, details she never even knew to ask about. The weapon of strategic silence. When someone asks you a direct question and you simply stare at them, the silence becomes unbearable. They feel compelled to fill it. In filling it, they reveal themselves. Example 3. The negotiation silence. A seller quoted a price for their business. The buyer said nothing, just looked at them steadily. After 30 seconds of silence, the seller said, "Well, I suppose I could go a bit lower," and reduce the price by 15%. The buyer still said nothing. After another uncomfortable pause, the seller reduced it another 10%. The buyer gained a 25% discount through pure silence. Silence creates mystery. People cannot manipulate what they do not understand. When you speak rarely and reveal little, you become inscrutable. They try to read you and fail. Never correct this misperception. Let silence maintain the illusion. Mystery generates power. You become, in their imagination, far more formidable than you may actually be. Law 10. Let them build your throne while thinking it's theirs. The most beautiful manipulation is when your victims believe they are the beneficiaries. When they work tirelessly to build your empire while convinced they are building their own. The principle of aligned illusions. People will sacrifice almost anything if they believe it serves their own ambitions. The key is making your goals appear to be their goals. Example 1. The franchising model. Ray Kroc did not build McDonald's restaurants himself. He convinced thousands of franchisees to invest their money, time, and lives building McDonald's locations. Each franchise owner believed they were building their own business, achieving their own American dream. In reality, they built Kroc's empire. They took all the risk, did all the work, and paid him for the privilege. The franchise owners made money, but Kroc made billions while doing a fraction of the work. Example 2. The founder title. A tech company recruited engineers by offering founding engineer titles. These early employees worked 80-hour weeks, took below-market salaries for equity, and poured their lives into the company. They felt like partners, like owners, like it was their company too. They looked at the shares they were building and saw their names on the future. When the company sold, the founder and early investors made hundreds of millions. The founding engineers each made low six figures after dilution and liquidation preferences. They had built a throne for someone else while thinking they were building their own. How to recruit without them knowing. Never present yourself as master and them as servants. Present yourself as the facilitator of their dreams. Say things like, I see your potential. Let me help you reach it. Example 3. The political campaign. Politicians master this law. Volunteers work 12-hour days, donate money they cannot spare, and alienate friends and family, all believing they're building a movement, fighting for their values, changing the world. The candidate gets power. The volunteers get a sense of participation. Maybe a photo with the winner. Perhaps a low-level appointed position, if they are lucky. They built the throne believing it would somehow be theirs too. The moment of revelation. Eventually, the structure is complete and the truth becomes clear. Some will accept the reality and continue serving, now understanding the true nature of the relationship. Others will leave, bitter but powerless to take back their contribution. Either way, you win. The throne stands regardless of how the builders feel about having built it. Law 11. Never accept the first offer. It's always a test. When someone makes you an offer, they are probing, testing, and determining how easily you can be satisfied and how little they can ultimately give you. Why the first offer is always low. No intelligent negotiator opens with their maximum. If you accept immediately, they learn two things. They could have offered less, and you can be exploited further. Example, the publishing advance. A first-time author receives an offer of $10,000 for their book. Thrilled, they immediately accept. 6 months later, they discover similar books by debut authors receive $50,000 to $100,000. The publisher confirmed what they suspected. This author had no idea of their market value and would accept the minimum. For the author's second book, despite strong sales of the first, the publisher offered $12,000, only slightly more, because the pattern was established. The author was someone who accepted low offers gratefully. Example, the salary negotiation. Alex was offered $80,000 for a position. Having researched that the role typically paid $95,000 to $110,000, he responded, "Thank you. I'm very interested. Can I think about the complete package and get back to you?" 3 days later, before he even countered, the company called, "We've reviewed the offer and can go to $92,000. His simple hesitation, his failure to accept immediately, triggered an automatic increase. His eventual counter of 105,000 was negotiated to 98,000. His peer, hired the same month, had immediately accepted the first offer of 80,000 for the identical role. The psychology of the test. Every offer is a question. How little can I give and still get what I want? Your response sets the entire tone of the relationship. Example, the acquisition lowball. A company offered to acquire a startup for $20 million. The founders, knowing their company was worth significantly more but flattered by the attention, were tempted to accept. Instead, they responded, "We appreciate the interest. We're not actively seeking acquisition, but we consider a serious offer." They then shared financial projections justifying a $50 million valuation. The acquiring company came back at $35 million. Final agreed price, $42 million. By not accepting the test offer, they gained $22 million, more than the original entire offer. The power of strategic silence. Silence makes the other person uncomfortable. Often, in that discomfort, they will improve the offer without you saying a word. When to walk away. Sometimes the best negotiation tactic is demonstrating willingness to abandon the deal entirely. This separates those who need you from those who merely want you on cheap terms. If they let you walk away, the offer was never serious. If they chase you or improve the offer, you just gained immense leverage. Law 12. When you show mercy, make sure they bleed gratitude forever. Mercy is not weakness. Mercy is investment. When you have the power to destroy someone and choose not to, that choice must haunt them forever. The fatal error of empty mercy. The fool shows mercy and expects nothing. True power understands. Mercy without obligation is waste. Every act of clemency must be transactional, creating a debt that can never be fully repaid. Example, the pardon executive. A CEO discovered that a senior VP had been embezzling, not massive amounts, but enough for termination and prosecution. Instead of firing him, the CEO said, "I know what you've done. I could destroy you, but I believe in second chances. You'll repay what you took, and you'll stay. But you owe me." For 15 years, that VP was the CEO's most loyal soldier. Every questionable request, every gray area decision, every personal favor, he complied without hesitation. The mercy purchased absolute loyalty more effectively than any contract. Example, the political favor. A congressman was caught in a scandal. A powerful senator could have destroyed him by calling for an investigation. Instead, the senator publicly defended him. These allegations are politically motivated. I stand with my colleague. The scandal faded. The congressman survived. And for the rest of his career, he voted with that senator on every issue. His survival depended on the senator's mercy. The architecture of eternal obligation. When you spare someone, you must frame it explicitly. I could destroy you, and you know this. But I am choosing mercy. Remember this choice. Example, the spared whistleblower. An employee discovered illegal practices and prepared to go public. Before she could, her boss said, "I know what you found. And you're right, it's wrong. But going public destroys this company and everyone in it, including you. Help me fix this internally, and you'll be part of the solution." She agreed. The practices were corrected. But because he framed it as protecting her, she felt she owed him, despite being the one who discovered the wrongdoing. Set the terms of their gratitude. Do not leave obligation vague. Specify what you expect in return. I'm sparing you. In return, I expect complete loyalty. By making the debt explicit, you turn abstract obligation into concrete expectation. The reminder system. People forget. Gratitude fades. You must provide periodic reminders. Remember when I could have exposed you? These reminders keep the debt alive. Law 13. Turn their strengths into fatal weaknesses. Every strength contains the seed of its own destruction. The greatest warriors fall to their own courage. The most intelligent are destroyed by their cleverness. The most loyal betray themselves through their devotion. Your task is not to fight strength with strength. Your task is to transform strength into liability. The paradox of power. What makes someone formidable also makes them predictable. The aggressive fighter overcommits. The cautious planner becomes paralyzed. The honest person cannot lie when lies would save them. The prideful cannot retreat when retreat would win. How to identify the exploitable strength? Watch what they rely on most. What trait do they believe makes them superior? What quality do they never question? That is your target. Example: a brilliant CEO built his reputation on data-driven decisions. His competitor fed him accurate data that supported an obvious expansion strategy. The CEO's strength, trusting his analytical process, led him to commit millions to a market his competitor had already poisoned. His own strength became the weapon used against him. Create situations where strength becomes trap. Engineer circumstances where their natural response becomes the wrong choice. You're not changing them. You are changing the battlefield. Example: a negotiator famous for compromise faced a union dispute. His opponent took an extreme position, knowing the negotiator's identity demanded he seek middle ground. The compromise still gave the union 80% of their goals. His strength made him predictable. The judo principle: use their momentum against them. Encourage their strength. Praise it. Make them rely on it. Then position yourself so that when they use it, they fall by their own force. Make their strength socially toxic. Reframe their biggest advantage as their biggest flaw. Confidence becomes arrogance. Detail orientation becomes obsession. Passion becomes instability. When multiple strengths conflict, the most elegant destruction is forcing them to choose between two virtues they value equally. Either choice wounds them. Either path betrays something essential. Law 14. Appear as a friend. Operate as a spy. Enemies guard themselves from you. Friends do not. Friends give you access to their secrets, their fears, their ambitions. The most effective intelligence gathering is disguised as friendship. Why friendship grants total access? People lower their guard with friends. They reveal everything. All of it is intelligence. Example: a corporate executive befriended a rival's VP for 2 years. Golf, dinners, birthdays, emotional talks. When his company launched a hostile takeover, he knew every weakness of the rival organization. The VP never suspected his best friend had been filing intelligence the entire time. The art of seeming genuine. You must appear to care. You must behave like a real friend. Time, presence, small kindnesses. The best spies half believe their own role. What to collect? Listen for fears, ambitions, frustrations, enemies, doubts, plans, and insecurities. Every conversation is data. Position yourself as the trusted advisor. Ultimate access comes when they seek your advice. Your guidance serves your interests while appearing to serve theirs. Example: a political operative acted as advisor to 3 candidates competing in the same primary. She gave each advice that quietly advantaged a 4th candidate, her true choice. When her preferred candidate won, she had leverage everywhere. Emotional discipline. You will hear genuine pain. Do not get attached. You are not their friend. You are an intelligence asset. Emotional distance, disguised as emotional closeness, is the key. Law 15. Strike the shepherd and the sheep scatter. Organizations, movements, and armies depend on individuals. Remove the central figure and the entire structure collapses. Why groups depend on individuals? Behind every collective effort lies a small number of essential people. Remove them and coherence dies. How to identify the true shepherd? Titles lie. Influence does not. Watch who people follow during crisis. That is the shepherd. Example: a startup appeared to be led by a charismatic CEO, but every decision waited for the quiet technical co-founder. A competitor recruited that co-founder away. The startup collapsed within months. The CEO was the face. The co-founder was the brain. Methods of removal. You don't need to destroy them physically. Discredit them. Isolate them. Tempt them away. Create scandal. The goal is removal from influence. The chaos that follows. When the shepherd is gone, the group fractures. Factions emerge. Infighting begins. While they fight themselves, they cannot fight you. Example: a nonprofit director left for a university position. The organization imploded within a year as lieutenants fought for control. Programs stalled. Donors left. One departure killed the entire movement. Protecting yourself as shepherd. If you are the shepherd, recognize your vulnerability. Build redundancy. Develop lieutenants. Create systems that don't collapse without you. Law 16. Make surrender feel like their victory. Crushing your enemy completely creates resentment. They will seek revenge, undermine you secretly, poison your victory from within. But if you make surrender feel like triumph, they will not only accept defeat, they will embrace it. The problem with total humiliation. When you force someone to acknowledge complete defeat, you wound their ego irreparably. That wound becomes a festering hatred that will eventually erupt. The humiliated become guerrillas. They sabotage, spread rumors, wait for your moment of weakness. Your victory becomes a permanent security problem. The architecture of dignified surrender. Present surrender not as defeat, but as wisdom. Not as loss, but as strategic repositioning. Not as humiliation, but as honorable compromise. You fought well, but continuing this conflict serves neither of us. Let us find terms that respect both our positions. This framing allows them to surrender while maintaining self-respect. And self-respect is the key. People will accept enormous losses if they can tell themselves a story where they are not the pathetic loser. Give them a prize. Concede something that appears valuable but costs you little. A title without power. Public acknowledgement of their contributions. A symbolic role in the new order. They can point to this prize and say, I gained something from this conflict. Meanwhile, you have gained everything that actually matters: control, resources, position, while spending only the cheap currency of gestures and symbols. Example: after a brutal corporate merger, the acquiring company's CEO offered the defeated company's president a position as senior strategic advisor, with a generous salary and impressive office. The title meant nothing. No real authority, no decision-making power. But it allowed the former president to save face publicly, tell himself he was still relevant, and accept the merger without becoming a vocal opponent. The acquiring CEO spent money he would have paid anyway and neutralized a potential enemy with a meaningless title. Let them believe they were never defeated. The most sophisticated version of this law is making them believe they achieved their goal, just through a different method than originally intended. They wanted influence? You give them an advisory role. They wanted recognition? You praise them publicly. They wanted to protect their interests? You demonstrate those interests are safe under your control. They look back at the conflict and think, we achieved what we wanted, without realizing they surrendered everything that mattered and received only symbols in return. Make surrender the beginning of partnership. Transform enemies into allies by making surrender the first step of collaboration. Now that this is settled, let us work together toward common goals. They become invested in the new order because they are part of it. The former enemy becomes the defender of your regime because you gave them a role within it. Example: when a city annexed a resistant neighboring township, instead of imposing control harshly, the city council created several regional advisory committees with prominent township residents in leadership positions. These committees had no binding authority, but gave the appearance of local input. Within 2 years, former opponents were defending the annexation, claiming they had successfully protected their community's interests through their committee work. They had been absorbed, completely while believing they had negotiated favorable terms. Law 17. Keep your real plans buried 3 layers deep. Never reveal your true objective. The plan you announce publicly is a decoy. The plan you share with close allies is misdirection. Your actual strategy exists in a 3rd layer, known only to you. Why single-layer plans fail? If you have one plan and people discover it, they can counter it. If your strategy is transparent, your enemies can prepare. Complexity is protection. Multiple layers of apparent strategy create confusion about which layer is real, making effective opposition impossible. The 3-layer structure. Layer 1, the public plan, the obvious, reasonable-sounding strategy you announce to the world. This is what most people will believe and discuss. Layer 2, the real plan, what you share with close allies and trusted partners. This seems more sophisticated than the public version, lending it credibility. People who learn this feel they have insider knowledge. Layer 3, the actual plan, known only to you. This is what you are genuinely pursuing while everyone else operates on false assumptions. Most people engage with Layer 1. Clever people think they have penetrated to Layer 2. No one suspects Layer 3 exists. Example, a tech company announced it was pivoting to focus on enterprise software, Layer 1. Internally, executives told the team the real goal was to gather enterprise contracts to make the company more attractive for acquisition, Layer 2. But the CEO's actual plan, Layer 3, was to use enterprise relationships to lock in distribution channels, then launch a consumer product with guaranteed placement. When the consumer product launched 18 months later, competitors were caught completely off guard. They had prepared for the wrong game. The benefits of misdirection. While your enemies prepare for the plan they think you have, you execute the plan they do not know exists. Their countermeasures address the wrong threat. And when your true plan manifests, it is too late for effective response. By the time they realize what you are actually doing, you have already achieved it. Compartmentalization of knowledge. Different people should know different layers. Some only know the public plan. Your inner circle knows the 2nd layer. But Layer 3, that remains with you. This protects you from betrayal. No one can reveal what they do not know. Example, during a political campaign, the candidate's public message focused on economic reform, Layer 1. Her senior advisors knew the real strategy was securing labor union endorsements to lock down key districts, Layer 2. But only the candidate knew that the entire campaign was positioning her for a cabinet appointment in the likely winner's administration. She never expected or even wanted to win the election itself, Layer 3. When she lost and was immediately appointed Secretary of Labor, political analysts were confused. But she had achieved exactly what she intended. Law 18. Use absence to increase respect and fear. Presence breeds contempt. Familiarity reduces mystique. The more people see you, the more ordinary you become. But absence creates hunger, mystery, fear that you're elsewhere, doing something they should know about but don't. Why constant presence diminishes you. When you are always available, always present, always responding, you become part of the landscape. People take you for granted. The always available person signals they have nothing more important to do than be available. This implies low value, regardless of their actual position. The power of strategic absence. Withdraw deliberately and watch what happens. People wonder where you are, what you're doing, whether they have fallen out of favor. Your absence occupies more mental space than your presence ever did. They think about you precisely because you're not there. Example, a venture capitalist was known for taking thinking sabbaticals, disappearing for 2 to 3 weeks without warning. Founders with pitches pending would panic, wondering if his absence meant disinterest. In reality, he was simply at his cabin. But the absence made founders more eager to please when he returned, more willing to accept his terms, more grateful for his attention. His scarcity increased his perceived value. creating scarcity value. Economics teaches that scarcity increases value. This applies to access to yourself. Appear occasionally. Make your presence an event rather than an expectation. Each appearance carries weight because it is not guaranteed. The absence that generates fear. Those in power understand a specific truth. Sometimes disappearing is the most threatening thing you can do. When you vanish, they imagine the worst. You must be planning something. You must be preparing a move they cannot see. Their imagination creates threats far more fearsome than your actual activities. Example: a CEO would occasionally stop responding to emails and skip meetings with no explanation. Executives would spiral into anxiety. Was she displeased? Was she planning restructuring? Were heads about to roll? Usually, she was simply focused on a project or taking personal time. But the anxiety her absence created kept her leadership team on edge, hyper-aware of their performance, afraid to become complacent. Her periodic disappearances were a management tool. Law 19. Play the long game. Revenge served ice cold. Hot revenge is amateur revenge. The rage-driven retaliation. The immediate strike back. Cold revenge is professional revenge. Calculated. Patient. Delivered when your enemy has forgotten they are your enemy, from a direction they never anticipated. Why immediate revenge fails. When you strike back immediately, everyone knows it is you. Your motive is obvious. Your action is attributed correctly. This reputation creates constant vigilance in your enemies. They watch you. They prepare for your retaliation. Your revenge becomes expected and therefore can be defended against. The architecture of cold revenge. Time is your weapon. Wait until the person has forgotten the original offense. Wait until they believe they got away with it. Meanwhile, you position pieces, create opportunities, establish leverage, build the infrastructure through which revenge will manifest. Then, when perfect conditions align, you act. And because years have passed, they never connect their current disaster to your ancient grievance. Example: a junior employee was publicly humiliated by a senior manager who stole credit for her work. She said nothing. Over the next 6 years, she changed companies twice, built an impressive reputation, and eventually became a board member of an industry consortium. When the senior manager's company sought consortium certification, essential for a major contract, she quietly raised questions about their internal attribution practices during the review process. The certification was delayed. The contract was lost. The senior manager was fired. He never knew why the review had gone badly. She had never mentioned the old incident. Her revenge was perfectly cold. The compounding power of patience. Quick revenge is limited to the resources and position you have today. But delayed revenge can incorporate the greater resources and better position you will have in the future. Wait until you are stronger. Wait until you have influence they need. Then your revenge can be proportionally more devastating. Appearing to forgive. The ultimate deception is seeming to move past the offense. Accepting their apology if they offered one. Working with them. Perhaps even helping them succeed. This creates complete relaxation of their guard. They believe the threat has passed. And from this position of trusted proximity, your eventual strike is exponentially more effective and completely unexpected. Example: a business partner who had been cheated in a deal appeared to forgive his former colleague. They remained friendly, even collaborated on small projects over the years. The betrayer relaxed completely. A decade later, when the betrayer's company faced a crucial vote from an industry board, the betrayed partner, now chair of that board, cast the deciding vote against them. Years of rebuilding trust had been strategic positioning. The revenge was served so cold the victim didn't even realize it was revenge. When they never see it coming. The perfect cold revenge is when the target never understands they are being targeted. The disaster that befalls them seems like bad luck, poor decisions, unfortunate circumstances. They suffer enormously but have no one to blame, no enemy to rail against. no revenge to seek because they do not know they were attacked. Law 20. Never fight for pride, only for position. Pride is expensive. Pride makes you defend things that do not matter. Pride forces you into battles you should avoid. Pride turns minor disagreements into existential conflicts. The master of power has no pride, only calculation, only position, only advancement. Why pride destroys power? Pride demands you prove yourself. Respond to every slight. Never back down. Always have a last word. These demands are strategically suicidal. Every time you respond to protect your pride, you expend resources on battles that do not advance your position. Pride is the ego demanding satisfaction. Power is the intelligence pursuing advantage. They are fundamentally opposed. The calculation of engagement. Before entering any conflict, ask one question. Does this improve my position? Not, am I right? Not, will I look weak if I back down? Not, do they deserve to be put in their place? Only, does this serve my advancement? If yes, engage fully. If no, do not engage regardless of provocation. Example, a prominent lawyer was publicly criticized by a younger attorney in a legal journal. The critique was petty and largely inaccurate. Everyone expected a response. The prominent lawyer said nothing. Colleagues were confused. Had he not seen it? He had. But responding would have elevated his critic, created an ongoing feud, and consumed his time. Silence cost him nothing. His reputation remained intact. His critic looked like he was picking fights with people above his station. Pride would have demanded a response. Position was better served by indifference. The art of strategic retreat. Sometimes the greatest power move is backing down, apologizing when you are right, letting someone else claim victory, accepting blame you do not deserve. This looks like weakness to those who value pride, but to those who understand power, it reveals strength. And often, your retreat creates overconfidence in opponents. They believe they have dominated you, which makes them careless. Example, during a corporate negotiation, a CFO was accused of incompetence in front of other executives, an accusation that was demonstrably false. Instead of defending herself, she said, "You're absolutely right. I should have caught that. Thank you for the feedback." The accuser, emboldened, became increasingly aggressive in subsequent meetings, ultimately overreaching so badly that he was removed from the project. She had sacrificed her pride in one moment to let him destroy himself over time. Her strategic retreat baited him into tactical overconfidence. The enemy who baits you. Sophisticated opponents will deliberately provoke your pride, trying to force you into disadvantageous battles. They insult you publicly, hoping you will respond emotionally and make mistakes. The proud person takes the bait every time. The disciplined person recognizes the trap and refuses it. No response, no defense, no engagement. The provocation fails, and the provocateur looks foolish for attacking someone who will not fight back. When pride and position align, occasionally, defending your dignity genuinely serves your strategic position. Someone attacks you in a way that, if unchallenged, would undermine your power. In these cases, respond with calculated force. Not because your feelings are hurt, but because letting the attack stand would encourage others and weaken your structural position. Example, when a CEO was accused in a public forum of ethical violations that were completely fabricated, he responded immediately and forcefully. Not out of wounded pride, but because allowing the accusation to stand unchallenged would have damaged his ability to lead. The response looked like pride, but was actually strategic defense. He provided documentation, demanded retractions, and made the cost of false accusations clear. This was position defense disguised as dignity defense. Law 21. Make them addicted to your approval. The most powerful chains are invisible. Physical restraints can be broken, but psychological dependency? That is permanent. When someone becomes addicted to your validation, you control them more completely than any contract or threat ever could. The psychology of approval addiction. Humans are hardwired to seek validation. This need is exploitable. When you control the supply of approval, you control the person seeking it. They will work harder, sacrifice more, compromise further, all for the next hit of your recognition. This follows the same neurological patterns as substance addiction: anticipation, reward, craving, and the willingness to do anything to maintain supply. How to create the dependency? Start by giving approval freely. Be generous with praise and recognition. Let them experience how good it feels to have your favor. Create the initial high, then gradually make it conditional. They must earn it. The approval that once flowed freely now requires effort, compliance, achievement. This shift from abundant to scarce transforms approval from pleasant bonus to desperate necessity. Example 1. A manager joins a company and immediately praises a talented employee. Your work is exceptional. You're exactly what this team needs. For 3 months, the praise flows regularly. Then it stops. The employee, now accustomed to recognition, works longer hours, volunteers for extra projects, anxiously seeking to recapture that initial approval. The manager gives it occasionally, randomly, keeping the employee in perpetual pursuit. Example 2. In personal relationships, someone showers their partner with affection and validation early on. Constant compliments, attention, reassurance. Once the partner becomes emotionally dependent on this supply, the validation becomes sporadic and conditional. I don't feel close to you when you. The partner begins modifying their behavior, dress, social circle, anything to restore the flow of approval they now desperately need. The pattern of intermittent reinforcement. This is the most addictive pattern known to psychology. Unpredictable rewards. Sometimes they get your approval, sometimes they don't, and they cannot determine why. This uncertainty creates obsessive behavior. They analyze every interaction, trying to decode what pleases you. They modify their behavior constantly, hoping to trigger your validation. The unpredictability keeps them perpetually engaged, perpetually trying, perpetually dependent. Make your approval uniquely valuable. Your validation must mean more than others. Position yourself as someone whose opinion matters most. Demonstrate high standards. Be difficult to impress. This scarcity makes each instance of approval exponentially more valuable. When they finally earn your recognition, it feels like genuine achievement. The withdrawal phase. Periodically, withdraw approval completely, not as punishment for specific actions, but arbitrarily. Let them do everything right and still receive nothing. This creates panic. They escalate their efforts, question themselves, become desperate to understand what changed. Then, after sufficient suffering, return your approval for something minor. The relief is overwhelming. The lesson is clear. They exist at your pleasure, and that pleasure can be withdrawn at any time, using approval to override their values. Once the addiction is established, you can make them compromise principles for validation. Small compromises at first, then increasingly significant ones. Each time they sacrifice their values for your approval, they become more invested. Admitting manipulation would mean admitting all those compromises were for nothing. So they double down, justify their choices, and become even more dependent. Example 3. A mentor in academia withholds recommendation letters and praise from a promising student until they agree to put the mentor's name on papers they didn't significantly contribute to. The student, desperate for career advancement that requires this mentor's approval, complies just this once, then again, then for increasingly questionable research practices. Each compromise makes walking away harder, because acknowledging exploitation means admitting their integrity was sold for nothing. The competition effect creates situations where multiple people compete for your limited approval. Let them see others receive what they crave. They will work harder, outperform each other, betray one another. all to be the one you acknowledge. You expend nothing but attention, and they destroy themselves competing for it. When they realize what has happened, some will eventually recognize the pattern. They will see they have become dependent and hate themselves for it. This realization changes nothing. The addiction remains. Knowing you are manipulated does not break the manipulation when the need is deep enough. They may resent you, but they still crave your approval. And that combination of resentment and need is even easier to control than simple dependency. Law 22. Mirror their soul, then shatter the reflection. People fall in love with those who seem to understand them completely, who reflect their values, their dreams, their deepest self. This mirroring creates profound connection and absolute trust. And then you shatter it. You reveal the mirror was strategic, the connection was manufactured. The psychological devastation is total. This is the law of weaponized intimacy, the art of perfect mirroring. To mirror someone's soul, you must first study it. Listen to their stories. Observe their reactions. Know what they value, fear, desire, and believe. Then reflect it back to them. Share similar experiences. Express matching values. Demonstrate that you see them, understand them, are fundamentally like them. This creates instant rapport. They feel recognized in a way that is rare and precious. They open themselves fully. Example 1. A con artist targets a lonely investor who frequently mentions his estranged daughter and his regret about prioritizing career over family. The con artist shares a fabricated story about his own father's distance and how he vowed never to make that mistake. He quotes the investor's favorite philosophers, shares his concerns about modern values, even adopts similar speech patterns. Within months, the investor views him as the son he wishes he had and signs over control of significant assets. Example 2. In corporate espionage, an operative befriends a target by perfectly mirroring their worldview. The target is passionate about environmental causes and disillusioned with corporate greed. The operative expresses identical frustrations, shares similar activist history, even dresses in a similar style. The target, feeling deeply understood, shares confidential information about their company's practices, never suspecting this kindred spirit works for a competitor. Why mirroring creates vulnerability? When someone believes you understand them deeply, they lower every defense. They share secrets, weaknesses, fears. They become emotionally dependent on the relationship because it meets a fundamental human need to be truly known and accepted. This dependency is your leverage, building the false bond. The mirroring must be sustained over time. One conversation is not enough. You must consistently reflect their inner world until the bond feels unbreakable. They introduce you to their friends as someone who really understands them. They rely on you for emotional support. They value your opinion above others. This is not real connection. This is psychological warfare disguised as friendship. But they do not know that. The strategic purposes of mirroring. While building the connection, you gain immense advantages. You learn everything about them. You establish influence over their decisions. You position yourself as irreplaceable in their emotional ecosystem. They will choose you over others, confide in you first, seek your approval before acting, all because they believe you share their fundamental nature. The shattering. Then comes the moment of revelation. The mirror breaks. They discover you were never what you seemed. The values were performed. The understanding was analytical. The connection was strategy. This can happen through deliberate exposure or through watching you contradict everything you claim to believe. Everything they thought they knew was false. Every vulnerable moment was exploited. Every secret they shared was collected as ammunition. The person they trusted most never existed. Example 3. After 2 years of perfect mirroring, a business partner who claimed to share an entrepreneur's vision of ethical, employee-focused business practices orchestrates a hostile takeover. In the process, he uses every vulnerability the entrepreneur shared to manipulate the board, and turns every confidential concern into evidence of instability. The entrepreneur realizes too late that every deep conversation, every moment of trust, was reconnaissance for this betrayal. The psychological destruction. This betrayal damages more than the relationship. It damages their ability to trust their own judgment. If they were so completely wrong about you, what else are they wrong about? They become paranoid, unable to form genuine connections because they cannot trust their ability to distinguish real from performed. You have not just betrayed them, you have broken their capacity to trust, potentially forever. When to deploy this weapon? This law is nuclear. Use it rarely and only against those who pose genuine threats to your power. The damage is so severe, it should be reserved for enemies who must be permanently neutralized. Protecting yourself from the same tactic. If you can mirror others, others can mirror you. Guard against this by never fully believing anyone reflects your soul. Test people. See if their mirroring holds under pressure. Observe whether they truly share your values or simply perform them. Never reveal everything, even to those who seem to understand completely. Law 23. Always have a fall guy ready before the fall. Failure is inevitable. Mistakes happen. Disasters occur. When they do, blame must go somewhere. Make absolutely certain it goes anywhere except to you. This is the law of deflection. Before you begin any risky endeavor, identify who will take the blame if things go wrong. Why personal blame is catastrophic. In power structures, being blamed for failure is often more damaging than the failure itself. Blame destroys reputation, credibility, and position. But blame is transferable. The same disaster that would end your career can be harmless if attached to someone else's. Selecting the proper fall guy. Your fall guy must be plausible. They must have enough involvement that blame appears reasonable, but not so much power that they can deflect it back to you. Ideally, they are ambitious enough to have taken initiative, but junior enough to be expendable. Example 1. A pharmaceutical executive launches an aggressive marketing campaign for a drug with known side effects. She ensures the VP of marketing signs off on all materials and presents the strategy to the board as his initiative, while she maintains an advisory role. When lawsuits arrive and regulatory bodies investigate, the paper trail clearly shows the VP took ownership. His career ends. Hers continues with a reputation for decisively handling the crisis by terminating him. Example 2. A politician supports a controversial policy that his advisors warn against. He has a mid-level appointee become the public face of the policy, giving speeches, writing op-eds, and defending it on television. When public backlash builds, the politician expresses disappointment that his appointee took the initiative too far and didn't keep me properly informed. The appointee is fired. The politician claims he was let down by someone he trusted. Building the evidence trail. This cannot be improvised. From the beginning of any risky project, document in ways that establish plausible deniability for yourself and clear responsibility for your designated fall guy. Have them sign off on decisions. Have them send emails taking ownership. Have them present plans as their own ideas. If the project succeeds, you claim credit for framework and guidance. If it fails, documentation shows they were responsible for execution. The art of distancing. As a project approaches potential failure, subtly increase distance. Start raising concerns. Send cautionary emails. Express doubt about the approach. This creates a paper trail showing you saw problems developing. When disaster strikes, you were the one who warned against exactly what happened. Meanwhile, your fall guy is on record dismissing your concerns, proceeding despite warnings. The timing of the sacrifice. Do not wait for others to demand accountability. As soon as failure becomes apparent, immediately identify your fall guy publicly. This was their responsibility, and they failed. We must act decisively. Your speed in assigning blame demonstrates leadership. The narrative becomes about your decisive response rather than your failed project, making the sacrifice look reluctant. You should not appear eager to sacrifice someone. That looks cruel and makes others worry they might be next. Instead, appear disappointed. I trusted them. I believed in their capabilities. I gave them this opportunity, and they let everyone down. This framing generates sympathy for you and directs anger toward them. Example 3. A tech startup's product launch fails spectacularly due to fundamental architectural decisions made by the founding team. The CEO, however, has positioned the CTO as the technical visionary in all public communications and board meetings. When the failure becomes undeniable, the CEO sadly announces that, despite my concerns about timeline and scope, which I raised in several meetings, our CTO insisted the technology was ready. The CTO is terminated. Investors blame him for burning through capital, and the CEO raises another round by promising proper technical oversight going forward. The multiple fall guy strategy. Advanced application. Have several potential fall guys at different levels. If your primary choice proves insufficient to absorb all blame, you can sacrifice a secondary one as well. The project manager failed, but so did the supervisor who should have caught these problems. Layer after layer of accountability, each one buffering you from consequences. Law 24. Let them dig their own grave. Hand them the shovel with a smile. Direct destruction is messy. It creates evidence, generates sympathy for the victim, and risks blowback. Far more elegant is creating conditions where your enemy destroys themselves while you watch innocently from the sidelines. This is the law of assisted self-destruction. Why self-destruction is superior. When you attack someone directly, you become the villain. They gain sympathy. Others may rally to defend them, but when they destroy themselves, you are blameless. In fact, you may appear as someone who tried to help. And self-destruction is more complete than external attack. When they defeat themselves, they cannot blame external enemies, identifying their self-destructive patterns. Everyone has them. Behaviors, impulses, weaknesses that, if indulged sufficiently, lead to disaster. Do they overcommit? Let them take on more than they can handle. Are they arrogant? Give them rope to hang themselves with overconfidence. Do they cut corners? Create situations where cutting corners leads to catastrophe. Example 1. A rival executive is known for taking credit for others' work and exaggerating his contributions. A savvy competitor arranges for him to lead a highly visible project that requires genuine expertise he doesn't possess, but frames it as a promotion and opportunity. Unable to resist the visibility, the rival accepts and immediately begins overpromising results. When he cannot deliver, his pattern of exaggeration becomes undeniable to leadership. His career stalls while his competitor appears supportive throughout. Example 2. A business partner has a pattern of impulsive financial decisions when excited about opportunities. Her associate begins presenting increasingly risky investment opportunities, each one framed with genuine enthusiasm. She overextends into a speculative venture, and when market conditions shift, faces bankruptcy. The associate expressed only support for her decisions and even offered cautious encouragement, creating no liability while eliminating competitor for resources. Creating permissive environments. People control their worst impulses when consequences are clear. Remove those constraints, and the impulses take over. Want someone to expose their incompetence? Give them a project beyond their abilities, but frame it as a great opportunity. Want someone to reveal their dishonesty? Create situations where lying seems safe and profitable, then ensure their lies eventually surface. You are not forcing them to do anything. You are simply creating environments where their natural tendencies lead to their destruction. The appearance of support. This law works best when you appear to be helping them. Encourage their risky decisions. Support their overreach. I believe in you. Take this opportunity. You can handle this. Your support makes them more committed to the path, more reluctant to pull back when warning signs appear. They cannot later claim you sabotage them. You are their biggest supporter, providing the tools of self-destruction. Sometimes you must actively supply what they need to destroy themselves. Resources, information, opportunities, shovels, in a metaphor of this law. The alcoholic gets access to alcohol. The corrupt gets opportunities for corruption. The vengeful gets means for revenge that will backfire. You are simply providing options. What they do with those options is their choice. Example 3. A journalist known for cutting ethical corners in pursuit of big stories receives an anonymous tip about a scandal involving a public figure. The tip contains some true information mixed with fabrications designed to be exposed. The journalist, eager for a scoop, publishes without sufficient verification. When the fabrications are revealed, her credibility is destroyed. The source of the tip, someone who wanted both the journalist and the public figure damaged, remains anonymous and blameless. Patience as the grave deepens. This law requires restraint. The temptation is to rush, to push too hard, to make the trap too obvious. Let them dig at their own pace. Each decision should feel like theirs. The grave must be deep before they realize they are in one. If you push too obviously, they may sense manipulation. But if they make every choice freely, they commit fully and blame themselves completely when it collapses. When they realize what has happened, eventually, standing in the grave they dug, they may look up and realize you handed them the shovel. By then, it is too late. The grave is dug, the damage is done, and, crucially, every action that led to this point was technically theirs. They cannot prove manipulation. They can only point to their own decisions. Law 25. The most dangerous person in the room is the one who needs nothing. Need is leverage. Desire is a handle. Want is weakness. The person who needs approval, wealth, status, or validation can be controlled through those needs. But the person who needs nothing, they are untouchable, unpredictable, impossible to manipulate through conventional means. Why need creates vulnerability. Every need creates a pressure point. Need money, financial incentives, and penalties control you. Need recognition, approval, and criticism control you. Those who study you identify your needs and exploit them. Your wants become chains that others pull to direct your behavior. The more you need, the more controlled you are. The less you need, the more free you are. Becoming the person who needs nothing. This is not about having everything. It is about being psychologically independent of external circumstances. Financial independence helps, but is not sufficient. Emotional self-sufficiency is key. Not requiring others' approval, not fearing their judgment, not needing their validation. This takes years of psychological work. Most never achieve it because giving up the comfort of need is too difficult. Example 1. A CEO is offered a massive acquisition deal that would triple his net worth, but require compromising the company's core mission. He declines without hesitation. The acquiring company increases the offer, then makes veiled threats about competitive pressure. The CEO remains unmoved. He has sufficient wealth, no need for external validation, and genuine attachment to the mission. Unable to find leverage, the acquiring company eventually withdraws. A CEO who needed wealth, status, or approval would have been controlled through those needs. Example 2. A tenured professor cannot be pressured by administration to change research findings that contradict a major donor's interests. She has financial security, no ambition for higher administrative positions, and no concern for social status within the institution. Threats of reduced funding or office reassignment mean nothing. She publishes her findings. The administration, finding no leverage, can only accept the situation. A professor who needed research funding, career advancement, or collegial approval would have been controlled. The power of walking away. The person who needs nothing can walk away from anything. Any deal, any relationship, any situation. This ability to leave is the ultimate leverage. When you can walk away, you negotiate from absolute strength. The other party knows they cannot coerce you through deprivation. Conversely, the person who cannot walk away has already lost. How to identify those who need nothing? Watch for indifference to normal incentives. They are not impressed by offers that would excite others. They are not concerned by threats that would terrify most people. They do not posture or seek validation. They do not justify themselves or care about your opinion. This person is dangerous because they are uncontrollable through normal means. Example 3. During a hostile board meeting, one director faces severe pressure from majority shareholders to approve a merger he believes is harmful. Other directors cave under threats of removal and public criticism. This director listens calmly, states his position clearly, and adds, "I will vote my conscience. If you remove me from the board, I will be fine. I don't need this position." His complete indifference to the threats makes him impossible to control, and his willingness to be the lone dissenting vote eventually causes others to reconsider. Strategies for dealing with the needless. When you encounter someone who truly needs nothing, you have limited options. Direct confrontation is pointless. They have no pressure points to exploit. Your best approach is creating distance. Do not engage in conflicts with them. Do not give them reasons to oppose you. If you must interact, focus on genuine value exchange. They may not need anything from you, but they might want something if the terms are right. The illusion of needlessness. Some people perform independence while secretly desperate for validation. They project that they need nothing while vulnerable to the right approach. Test this. Offer what they claim not to need. Watch for micro-reactions. The truly needless remain genuinely indifferent. The performer's reveal tells. True needlessness is rare. The trap of achieving needlessness. Ironically, becoming the person who needs nothing can isolate you from human connection. Need creates relationships. Mutual dependency builds communities. The person who needs nothing may gain power, but lose intimacy. This is the trade-off. Maximum freedom and power. Minimum genuine connection. You must decide what you value more. Law 26. Control the options. They'll choose the one you want. People cherish the illusion of free choice. They need to believe their decisions are autonomous. So give them choices, but only choices that serve your interests. This is the law of constrained choice. Freedom within your framework is still control. Why force choices create resistance? Tell someone what to do, and they instinctively resist. Human psychology rebels against obvious control, but give them options, and resistance evaporates. They feel autonomous. They experience the satisfaction of making decisions, and they never notice that every option was pre-selected to serve your agenda. The architecture of controlled choice. Present 2 to 4 options. Too few, and the choice feels constrained. Too many, and decision paralysis prevents action. 3 options is often ideal. Each option must appear distinct, but all must lead to outcomes acceptable to you. They deliberate seriously between options that all benefit you regardless of which they choose. Example 1. A software company wants users to accept data tracking, but knows that a simple yes/no choice will result in many refusals. Instead, they present 3 options: full experience, maximum tracking, balanced, moderate tracking, and limited, minimal tracking with reduced functionality. The absence of a zero tracking option means that no matter what users choose, the company gets data. Users feel they made an autonomous choice about their privacy. Example 2. A parent wants a child to complete homework before recreation, but knows direct orders create battles. Instead, would you like to do homework now and have free time after dinner, or do half now and half after dinner? The child deliberates seriously between the options, feeling autonomous, never considering the unspoken third option of recreation first. Either choice accomplishes the parent's goal. The decoy option. Advanced technique. Include one option that exists only to make another look better. The decoy is not meant to be chosen. It is designed to be obviously inferior. Option A costs $1,000. Option B costs $900 but offers less. Option C costs $1,050 and offers more than A. Suddenly C looks like the best value, even though it is the most expensive. The decoy was option B, eliminating options they want. Sometimes people desire outcomes not on your menu. Before they can articulate these desires, you must explain why those options are not available. I know some people suggest D, but that is not feasible because you eliminate alternatives preemptively, narrowing the field to only your acceptable options before the decision process begins. Example 3. A company wants to end remote work, but knows employees will resist direct mandates. Leadership presents 3 return-to-office plans: 5 days per week, immediate strong resistance; 3 days per week, the actual goal; or 2 days per week with reduced access to promotions and projects, implicitly punitive. The 4-day and full remote options are never mentioned. Employees choose the 3-day option, feeling they negotiated successfully, never realizing this was the intended outcome all along. The illusion of influence. Let them modify the options slightly. Would you prefer the blue version or the red one? Should we schedule this for Tuesday or Thursday? These minor choices make them feel they have shaped the decision. In reality, you control the substance. They control superficial details that do not threaten your core agenda. But those superficial choices create ownership. They feel invested in the outcome. When they choose unexpectedly, occasionally, someone chooses the option you least wanted from your menu. This is still better than them choosing something not on the menu at all. And their unexpected choice reveals information about their priorities you did not know. Adapt. The key is that even your least preferred option from the controlled set is acceptable. You never offer choices where one outcome would genuinely damage your interests. Law 27. Make loyalty expensive and betrayal impossible. Loyalty purchased cheaply is loyalty easily bought by others. But loyalty that costs something significant creates investment. And if you structure situations where betrayal would cost everything, loyalty becomes not a choice, but a necessity. This is the law of binding commitment. Make people invest so heavily that leaving you means losing everything. Why cheap loyalty is worthless. If someone's loyalty costs them nothing, it is worth nothing. They maintain it only as long as convenient. The moment a better offer arrives, they switch allegiance with no loss. But when loyalty requires sacrifice, when maintaining it costs something valuable, when they have invested heavily in the relationship, walking away means abandoning all that investment. Creating investment requirements. Make people invest time, effort, reputation, or resources into their relationship with you. Each investment increases their stake in maintaining the connection. Have them publicly declare loyalty. Make them burn bridges with your enemies. Give them responsibilities that require your continued support. Position them so their success depends on your success. Example: a tech startup CEO requires all senior executives to publicly criticize competitors' products on social media before joining the company. These executives cannot easily leave for those same competitors. They have burned that bridge publicly. Their career trajectory is now tied to the startup success. The sunk cost trap. Once people have invested heavily, the sunk cost fallacy works in your favor. Walking away means admitting all that investment was wasted. So they double down, investing more, becoming more trapped. I have come this far. I cannot quit now. This thinking keeps people loyal long past the point where loyalty serves their interests, making betrayal catastrophically expensive. Structure relationships so that betraying you means losing not just your support, but everything they have built. Their position, their reputation, their network, their resources, all contingent on maintaining good standing with you. This is not about making threats. This is about creating structural dependency so complete that betrayal is functionally suicidal. Example: a political operative brings junior staffers into meetings where sensitive information is shared. These staffers now have knowledge that makes them valuable, but only if they remain loyal. Betrayal means losing access to the entire network that gives their information value. They become locked in through knowledge they cannot use elsewhere. The shared secret strategy: bind people to you through mutual vulnerability. Know their secrets and let them know yours, real or manufactured. Now betrayal means mutual assured destruction. They cannot expose you without exposing themselves. You are locked together and guaranteed mutual loyalty. Example: two business partners each hold compromising information about tax irregularities in their shared ventures. Neither can report the other without implicating themselves. This mutual vulnerability creates stronger bonds than any written contract, rewarding expensive loyalty. When someone demonstrates loyalty that costs them something, reward it visibly. Make sure everyone sees that sacrifice for you is recognized and compensated. This serves two purposes. First, it encourages continued loyalty from that person. Second, it signals to others that loyalty to you is profitable, even when expensive. But never reward cheap loyalty excessively. That devalues the currency. Law 28. When they expect a dagger, give them a kiss, then the dagger. Predictability is vulnerability. When your enemies know you will attack, they prepare defenses. But when you shift modes unexpectedly, from aggression to apparent affection, you penetrate their guard completely. And then, from within their relaxed defenses, you strike with devastating effect. This is the law of tactical inconsistency. Appear to be one thing, then become another. The power of violated expectations. Human psychology relies on prediction. We use past patterns to anticipate future behavior. When someone violates those patterns dramatically, we experience momentary paralysis while our brain recalibrates. In that moment of confusion, we are maximally vulnerable. And if the shift is from hostile to friendly, we let our guard down entirely, relieved that the expected attack did not materialize. That is when you strike, building the expectation. For this law to work, your target must genuinely expect aggression. Perhaps you have a history of direct confrontation. Perhaps the situation clearly calls for conflict. They prepare. They strengthen defenses. They anticipate your attack and ready countermeasures. All of this preparation leaves them rigid, committed to a defensive posture. Example: two executives compete for a promotion. One has been vocally critical of the other in meetings for months. Everyone expects a confrontational showdown. Instead, the critical executive publicly praises their rival in a company-wide presentation, offering to collaborate on a major project. The rival, relieved and grateful, shares strategic information during the collaboration, information that is then used to undermine their promotion case with upper management. The unexpected kiss. Then, instead of attacking, you embrace them, publicly praise them, offer collaboration, extend an olive branch, demonstrate apparent goodwill. The shock is complete, and humans respond to unexpected kindness with reciprocal warmth. It is a deeply ingrained social pattern, penetrating their defenses. While they are reorienting, you gain access. They share information. They accept your partnership. They trust you because you violated their negative expectations in such a positive way. This access is your real objective. You are now positioned where an external enemy could never reach. Then the dagger. Once positioned, once they have relaxed, once you have gathered what you need, then you strike. The betrayal is so much more devastating because they let you close willingly. They trusted you. The dagger, delayed but not forgotten, now finds its mark with no defense in place. Example: a corporate raider publicly attacks a company's leadership, driving down stock prices. Just as a hostile takeover seems imminent, he suddenly withdraws all criticism and offers a generous partnership deal instead. The relieved board welcomes him onto an advisory committee. 6 months later, using insider knowledge gained from that position, he executes the takeover at a fraction of the cost, with detailed knowledge of every defensive strategy the board had planned. The psychological devastation. This law does not just defeat enemies. It breaks their ability to read situations correctly. They were so certain you would attack directly that your kindness seemed genuine. Now they cannot trust their instincts at all. Future opponents they face may genuinely offer peace, but they will be paranoid, unable to accept it. Law 29. Never let them see your scars. Vulnerability is intimate. Scars are proof of damage, evidence of defeats, reminders that you are not invincible. When people see your scars, they see your weaknesses. They learn what hurt you, and they gain the knowledge of how to hurt you again. This is the law of concealed damage. Never reveal where you've been wounded. Why scars are dangerous information. Every scar tells a story of vulnerability, a past betrayal, a painful loss, a strategy that failed. These stories are intelligence for anyone who might oppose you. They show what matters enough to wound you. They reveal what you failed to defend. The person who sees your scars knows the shape of the knife that will cut you deepest. The illusion of invulnerability. Power requires the appearance of being undamaged by past defeats. Not that defeats did not occur, but that they left no lasting impact. This illusion makes others hesitant to attack. Why challenge someone who seems immune to damage? Why repeat tactics that apparently did not work? Example: a negotiator loses a major deal because a client discovered her fear of public embarrassment and threatened exposure of a minor scandal. In future negotiations, she never shows emotional response to threats or pressure. She maintains perfect composure even when similar tactics are attempted. Opponents cannot identify what leverage might work, so they settle on her terms instead. The temptation to share trauma. There is a powerful human impulse to share pain, to be seen in our suffering, to connect through mutual vulnerability. This impulse is seductive and dangerous. When you share your scars, you feel momentarily lighter, understood, connected. But you have also given away strategic information to someone who may someday use it against you. How to carry hidden wounds. You process trauma privately. You heal alone or with trusted advisors who are completely separate from your sphere of power. You never let the wound show in context where it could be exploited. Present confidence where there is fear. Project indifference where there is pain. Demonstrate strength at precisely the points where you are most damaged. Example: a CEO whose company failed due to cash flow problems never mentions liquidity concerns in her new venture, even when finance discussions arise. She delegates all cash management to a trusted CFO, but never reveals why. Competitors assume she is simply focused on strategy, not that she has deep anxiety about financial oversight. They cannot exploit a vulnerability they do not know exists. When people probe for scars, sophisticated opponents will test you, looking for emotional responses that reveal damage. They mention topics, watch your reactions, probe for the flinch that shows where you were hurt. Do not flinch. Control every micro-expression. Let them probe harmlessly while you know that they are searching. The difference between scars and lessons. You can share lessons without revealing wounds. I learned early that trusting too easily is dangerous. Does not tell them who betrayed you or how it damaged you. Frame past defeats as education rather than trauma. They learn you adjusted strategy, but not what pain motivated the adjustment. Example: a politician who lost an election due to a staff member's betrayal never mentions that specific incident. Instead, she references the importance of vetting team members thoroughly as a general principle. Opponents know she values loyalty, but not what particular betrayal taught her that lesson. Law 30. Turn every defeat into a legend they fear more than death. Defeats will come. Losses are inevitable. The difference between the weak and the powerful is not whether they fall. It is what they do with the fall. Turn your defeats into mythology. Make your losses so spectacular, your survival so improbable, your comebacks so devastating that people fear causing your next defeat more than they fear anything else. This is the law of weaponized resilience. Make your scars into symbols of terror. Why defeat can become power. Most people try to hide their defeats. They minimize losses, deflect blame, pretend failures did not happen. This is weakness masquerading as dignity. The truly powerful do the opposite. They acknowledge the defeat completely. They own it, examine it, and transform it into a narrative of inevitable return. When people know that defeating you once means facing an obsessed, relentless, twice as dangerous version of you later, they think very carefully before opposing you at all. Example: after being forced out of his own company, Steve Jobs did not quietly fade away. He built Next and bought Pixar, creating enormous success elsewhere. When Apple desperately needed him years later, his return was not as a defeated founder begging for a second chance, but as a conquering hero whose absence had nearly destroyed the company. The board members who had fired him learned a permanent lesson. Removing Jobs was far more dangerous than tolerating him. The narrative of inevitable return. Frame every defeat as temporary, not denial, acknowledgement that you lost, but with the unshakable certainty that this is not the end of the story. You have one today. Enjoy it. The implication hangs in the air. This is not over. What comes next will be far worse for those who celebrate now. Building the legend of indestructibility. Each time you survive what should have destroyed you, the legend grows. Each comeback reinforces the pattern. Eventually, people stop trying to defeat you because the historical record shows it only makes things worse. Previous opponents who celebrated their victory over you now serve as cautionary tales. Example: after a major political scandal, a governor faced calls to resign. Instead of stepping down quietly, he acknowledged wrongdoing publicly, served a brief suspension, then returned to politics more aggressive than before. He targeted every official who had called for his resignation, using his political machine to end their careers one by one over the following years. Future scandals brought far fewer calls for resignation. Everyone remembered what happened to those who pushed him when he was down. The theatrical elements. This lore requires performance. Your return from defeat must be visible, dramatic, and clearly connected to the original loss. People must see the causality. Make your comeback a public demonstration. Reference the original defeat explicitly. You remember when you thought you had beaten me? Let me show you what that victory actually cost you. Making the return disproportionate. Your comeback should exceed the original defeat in magnitude. They took something from you. You take everything from them. They embarrassed you. You destroy their entire reputation. The disproportionate response serves a purpose, establishing that the price of defeating you is always higher than any benefit gained. Example: a junior executive was passed over for promotion in favor of an external candidate. Rather than accept the decision gracefully, she documented every mistake the new hire made, quietly building alliances with board members, and positioned herself as the solution to problems the external hire created. Within 18 months, the external hire was terminated, and she received not just the original promotion, but a higher position with expanded authority. The hiring manager who had passed her over was reassigned to a lesser role. The message was clear: underestimating her once had permanent consequences. Law 31. Speak softly so they lean in, then crush them while they're close. Loud threats put people on guard. Shouting creates distance. Aggression activates defenses. But soft speech makes people come closer. They lean in to hear. They lower their shields to listen. And at that intimate range, they are most vulnerable. This is the law of deceptive gentleness. Use quietness as tactical positioning. Why softness penetrates defenses. Volume signals threat. When someone yells, raises their voice, or speaks aggressively, every social instinct tells us to create distance and raise defenses. But soft speech signals safety. It suggests intimacy, trust, confidence. When someone speaks quietly, we unconsciously interpret this as meaning they are not threatened and pose no threat. We relax. This relaxation is your opportunity. The mechanics of drawing them in. Speak quietly enough that they must focus completely to hear you. This focus narrows their awareness. They are concentrating on your words, not on their environment, not on danger signals, not on defensive positioning. Their entire attention is on understanding what you are saying. They have voluntarily entered your sphere, leaned into your space, and made themselves accessible to whatever comes next. Example: a lawyer in a hostile negotiation never raises her voice, even when opposing counsel shouts accusations. She speaks so quietly that they must lean across the table to hear her counteroffers. This forces them to physically close distance, creating psychological intimacy that makes her sudden presentation of damaging evidence more devastating. They feel betrayed by the false sense of connection her soft voice created. When to strike. The strike does not need to be physical. Often it is verbal. The devastating observation, the crushing piece of information, the perfectly timed revelation that destroys their position. They lean in to hear your wisdom. Instead, they receive the knife. Example: during a board meeting, a CEO speaks in barely audible tones, forcing all members to lean in attentively. Mid-sentence, still in the same quiet voice, he announces that 3 board members are being removed for undisclosed conflicts of interest, with documentation already filed. The soft delivery makes the brutality more shocking. By the time anyone processes what happened, the conversation has moved on, still in that same measured, quiet tone. The aftermath. After the strike, maintain the soft voice. Do not escalate to aggression. The continued gentleness while they are reeling creates profound disorientation. They have just been devastated, but your demeanor suggests nothing unusual happened. This gaslights them into questioning their own perception. Law 32. Always leave one exit open. For them, never for you. Trapped animals fight with the desperation of having nothing to lose. But animals with an escape route, they take the exit instead of fighting. This is why you always leave your enemies one way out, just not the way they think. And for yourself, never maintain exits. Burn bridges. Eliminate retreat. Commit so completely that the only path is forward through victory. This is the law of asymmetric commitment. Offer them escape while ensuring your own totality. Why trapped enemies are dangerous. When people believe they have no option but total destruction, they fight with suicidal intensity. They have nothing to lose, which makes them willing to accept any cost to inflict damage. But give them an exit, and most will take it. Survival instinct overrides vengeance when escape is possible. The tactical exit. The exit you provide must appear genuine. It must seem like a real path to safety, not an obvious trap. But the exit serves your purposes. It channels them in the direction you want. It removes them from the field without the messiness of total destruction. Example: a company facing a hostile employee lawsuit offers a generous severance package with a non-disclosure agreement, framing it as a dignified resolution that protects both parties. The employee, facing years of expensive litigation with uncertain outcome, takes the exit. The company has eliminated the threat, controlled the narrative, and prevented testimony, all without the risk of a trial they might lose. The employee survives but is neutralized, making the exit attractive. People under pressure will scrutinize any apparent escape route for traps. Your exit must withstand this scrutiny. It must offer genuine survival, genuine relief from immediate threat. What makes it tactical rather than generous is where it leads. They survive, but in a position of weakness, isolation, or irrelevance. Example: a political opponent is given the option to withdraw from a race for health reasons, rather than have financial irregularities exposed. The exit preserves their reputation and avoids criminal investigation. They take it gratefully, but they are now permanently removed from politics. Their network dissolved, their influence gone. They survived, but are irrelevant. Why you keep no exits for yourself? For you, exits are weakness. Keeping a backup plan means you are not committed. Having a retreat option means you can give up. Burn every bridge behind you. Ensure that failure means total destruction. Make victory the only option because retreat is impossible. This total commitment creates a psychological state where you will do whatever is necessary. Example: an entrepreneur invests every asset into a startup, selling her house, liquidating retirement accounts, cutting all corporate ties. This is not reckless. It is strategic. With no safety net, she negotiates with the desperation and focus of someone for whom failure is not an option. Investors sense this commitment and find it more compelling than those with comfortable fallback positions. The lack of exits becomes a competitive advantage. The courage of no return. Others will perceive your lack of exits as either bravery or recklessness. Let them wonder. What matters is that you operate with the intensity of someone for whom failure is not an option, because it literally is not. This commitment is visible. People recognize when someone has staked everything. It commands respect, creates intimidation, and signals that you are more dangerous than those who maintain safety nets. Law 33. Power is taken, never given. Take it before they notice it's gone. This is the final law because it encompasses all others. It is the fundamental truth beneath every strategy, every tactic, every manipulation described in these pages. No one will hand you power. No one will say, "Here, take control of this situation, this organization, this empire." Power is acquired through action, through positioning, through the gradual accumulation of influence, until one day you realize you control everything and they realize they control nothing. And by the time anyone notices, it is too late to stop you. The myth of legitimate authority. Society tells a comforting lie. That power comes through proper channels, official recognition, legitimate succession. That you earn authority through merit, and it is granted through institutional processes. This is theater for the masses. Real power is never granted. It is seized by those who understand that authority is claimed, not given. The gradual accumulation. Power is rarely taken in one dramatic moment. That is revolution, which is unstable and often fails. Sustainable power seizure is incremental, almost invisible. You take one small authority, then another. You position yourself in one key role, then a second. Each step appears reasonable, justified, minor. No single step triggers alarm, but the accumulation creates unassailable position. Example: a chief of staff begins by offering to handle scheduling for an overwhelmed executive, then takes over email triage, then starts making minor decisions to save time, then controls access to the executive. Within 2 years, nothing reaches the executive without passing through the chief of staff first. The executive believes they are still in control. Everyone else knows the chief of staff is the real power, because that is who they must satisfy to get anything done. The camouflage of service. The most effective power seizures happen under the guise of helpfulness. You take control by appearing to take responsibility. You seize authority by appearing to accept burden. Let me handle that for you. You have too much on your plate. What you have actually done is remove their control over a function. They experience relief. You experience expanded power. Example: in a struggling nonprofit, a board member volunteers to temporarily manage finances during a crisis. She reorganizes the accounting system, establishes new vendor relationships, and implements spending controls. 2 years later, she is the only person who fully understands the organization's financial structure. The board cannot remove her without risking organizational collapse. She effectively controls the entire operation through financial gatekeeping, despite holding no official executive position. The point of no return. There comes a moment when your accumulated power crosses a threshold. You control enough that attempting to remove you would cause system collapse. You have made yourself structurally essential. This is when power transitions from precarious to secured. Not because anyone granted you authority, but because you have positioned yourself so effectively that removing you is more dangerous than tolerating your control. When they notice, eventually, someone will realize you have taken power that was never officially given. They will object. They will point out that you have exceeded your authority. Your response is simple. Demonstrate that you are already in control. What they noticed is already fact. Their objection is not prevention, but complaint. Perhaps you are right. What do you propose we do about it? The question highlights their powerlessness. They can identify the problem, but cannot solve it, because you control the means of solution. Example: a tech company's senior engineer is confronted by management about making architectural decisions beyond his role. His response: I made those decisions because no one else understood the system well enough to make them. The infrastructure you are currently using was designed and implemented by me. If you would like someone else to make these decisions, you will need to find someone who understands what I built. I estimate that onboarding would take 18 months. Shall I document everything for my replacement? The manager backs down. The engineer has made himself irreplaceable, and everyone now knows it. The structures that follow. Once power is secured through seizure, you can create official structures that appear to grant what you have already taken. Titles, positions, formal authority. This is how all stable power works. Take it first, legitimize it later. The order matters. The never-ending process. This law does not apply once. It applies continuously. Power is not taken and then held statically. It must be continually seized, expanded, and defended. Complacency means loss. The moment you stop actively taking more power is the moment someone else begins taking yours. You must remain perpetually in the mode of acquisition. Each day presents opportunities to expand influence, control more resources, position more effectively. The weight of these principles. You have now encountered all 33 laws. If you have listened carefully, you may feel disturbed. Good. These principles should disturb you. They describe a reality most people prefer not to acknowledge. Some of you will close this audiobook and never think about these laws again, choosing to believe the world operates according to more comfortable principles. That is your right. But understand, your rejection of these laws does not make them less real. It only makes you less prepared to recognize them when they're used against you. Others will embrace these laws entirely, applying them without restraint or consideration. To you I offer a warning. Power gained through pure manipulation is brittle. It creates enemies, breeds paranoia, and often collapses spectacularly. The most effective operators understand these laws, but temper them with strategic restraint and occasional genuine connection. The wisest path lies in understanding these principles completely while applying them selectively. Know how loyalty is bound, how expectations are violated, how defeats become legends, how power is seized, but recognize that not every situation requires maximum ruthlessness. Sometimes cooperation serves better than manipulation. Sometimes genuine loyalty is more valuable than enforced loyalty. These laws are tools, not commandments. A surgeon's scalpel can save lives or take them. The instrument itself is neutral. The outcome depends on the hand that wields it and the purpose it serves. What matters now is what you do with this knowledge. You cannot unhear these laws. You cannot unknow these patterns. They will appear everywhere you look, in politics, business, relationships, institutions. The question is not whether you will encounter these dynamics. You will. They are already present in your life, whether you recognize them or not. The question is, will you understand what you are seeing? Will you recognize when these tactics are deployed against you? Will you know when to apply them yourself and when to resist the temptation? This knowledge is a burden. It removes comfortable illusions. It forces you to see human interaction as strategic, calculating, often mercenary. You may wish you could return to ignorance, but knowledge, once gained, cannot be surrendered. You know now how power truly operates. What you do with that knowledge, whether you use it to protect yourself, to gain advantage, or to recognize and resist these patterns, is entirely your choice. The laws themselves care nothing for your choice. They will continue operating whether you participate or not. But you, at least, will no longer be blind to them. If you made it this far, it means you're serious about your life. You're not just thinking, you're upgrading yourself. That already puts you ahead of 90% of people who never finish what they start. Now it's time to take your mind to the next level. Subscribe to the channel to get more mind-shifting books like this, because you're not ordinary anymore. You're part of the high-performance league. Your future self will thank you.